Many times I've heard defenders of AA often act like that every AA group is its own entire entity, that there are no leaders, there's no one in charge, nobody knows what's going on about anything. And they hide behind that tradition in their autonomous horseshit about claiming that every group is responsible for its own behavior. And what they're really doing is saying there's nobody you can hold accountable for all the unsavory things that go on in AA. Is what it really boils down to. They don't tell you about the long forms of the traditions, which more or less shows that they do have a centralized authority, and that even though they'll say there's no leaders in AA, there's only trusted servants, nobody has a role doing anything. It's almost like the Nuremberg trials right after World War II. I have no idea who ordered all these murders. I have no idea who ordered all these concentration camps. I have no idea who set out this plan to annihilate an entire group of people. I have no clue. They just told me what to do, and the people who told me what to do, they say they don't know who told us what to do either, because we don't know. Nobody knows anything, and therefore nothing is anybody's fault. No time that I don't think in recent history has that been more apparent than in the case of Carla Breda. Probably a lot of the people watching this channel know all about it. It was on 48 Hours. It's been 7 or 8 years ago, and at first the AA people tried to say, well, it's not our fault because, he was a convicted felon, and courts send convicted felons here. It ain't got nothing to do with us, That's the court's problem. They don't tell you that AA could very easily do away with court-ordered AA tomorrow if they wanted to, but they choose not to, and it's not because of the autonomy of the fucking groups either. But when it turned out that the guy who murdered Carla Breda wasn't court-ordered into AA, he had been going to AA for over 20 years. As a matter of fact, he loved going to AA. He never stopped drinking as a result of going to AA. In his trial, after he had murdered her, he more or less passed off the whole thing as, well, alcohol makes me do bad shit. It's not my fault. I'm an alcoholic. But at the time when the 48 Hours ran the story, and I'm working around to something here, I didn't see one single fucking AA member on any of the social media platforms, on any of the websites where the story was published, on any fucking network comments that were allowed at the time. I saw not one AA member say, you know what, these kinds of things go on in AA. It's a tragic thing that this happened. It's a horrible thing this happened. And the truth of the matter is, AA needs some drastic overhaul as a result of it. I didn't see one single comment from anybody, anywhere, that was an AA member that said anything even remotely like that. I saw people saying it was her own fault. She chose to date him. I saw them saying, well, you can hold the group maybe accountable for not reporting the fact that he was beating the hell out of her on a regular basis, but you can't blame AA for that. Well, this is just a case of really bitter, angry people who the AA program didn't work for. They're using this as a situation to call to light on an issue that doesn't exist. There's nothing like this going on in AA. Even though there were AA members during the whole entire aftermath of this whole entire horrible, tragic fucking event, they said they knew he was beating her, they knew he was abusing her, they knew he had a habit of doing it, but it wasn't anybody's responsibility to do anything about it because AA has to handle its own problems. AA can't go to law enforcement because it would, make the group look bad or whatever. They don't talk about the fact that AA has these kinds of things going on all the time, and they all use this idea that, every group is a governing entity body of its own and has nothing to do with anything anybody else is doing. You don't... My left hand doesn't know what my right hand is doing. I mean, over here, this hand doesn't know that I'm holding this phone right now over here. The long form of their horseshit traditions, it says, with respect to its own affairs, each AA group should be responsible to no other authority than its own conscience. But when its plans concern the welfare of neighboring groups also, those groups ought to be consulted, and no group, regional committee, or individual should ever take any action that might greatly affect AA as a whole without conferring with the trustees of the General Service Board. On such issues, our common welfare is paramount. It doesn't say that at the one that they read in every meeting when they say each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. But that is ultimately what it's saying. It's saying that you can't do anything that might besmirch or smear the AA name without AA knowing all about it, which means that AA has to approve what you do in your formats and your meetings and everything else. But we'll just ignore the fact that you have to confer and run everything by the main thing because the common welfare of AA comes first. What they're really telling you is we have to protect our cult religion at all costs, no matter what happens. But they use this a lot of the times to try to provide the defense that AA can't possibly be a cult. Every group is an authority unto itself. Yet the Cult Education Institute still haven't figured out how to go between the screens on here. But believe it or not, I kind of like having a phone over here to consult while I'm talking. It kind of helps my mind flow. But it says, a cult is an organized group, according to the Cult Education Institute, whose purpose is to dominate cult members through psychological manipulation and pressure strategies. Cults are usually headed by a powerful leader, but some individuals or groups actually are in charge of cults. In other words, just because you're not living in the middle of Waco, fucking Texas, with the Founding Fathers picture on the wall on a compound, and you're not allowed to go out into the town square or the town public or something like that, and sometimes they put you in these little basement rooms with blaring lights, and they play all kinds of horrible singing commercials to get you to psychologically break, doesn't necessarily mean AA gets off scot-free when it comes to passing the cult test. So many people use these little manipulative, dishonest tactics to try to say, well, all the groups are autonomous. We don't know what's going on in all the groups. We can't blame us for any of this shit. Yet not one single AA member ever comes forward and says, well, maybe, if these autonomous groups are allowing all kinds of abhorrent behavior to take place, maybe we need to think about restructuring everything. They can't do that because AA is a religion, and a religion can never restructure or adapt with the modern change in times. Suggesting an AA meeting somewhere that maybe AA as a whole ought to join the modern day world that's ever evolving and ever changing. And maybe we need to redo some of these things, and maybe we need to redo all those things. You watch how quickly you'll get shot down. You watch how quickly the next 5 people that talk right after you, they're going to say, no, this thing has been around for all these years because, you know, the two Bill W. and Bob put this thing together, and these traditions are in place for a reason, and it even says in the traditions that if we deviate from the traditions, we'll die, which it actually does say that in the phony fucking traditions. It says that if you deviate from any of this, you're going to die. You surely die, as a matter of fact. What they're really saying is the individuals don't mean shit. The cult religion has to come before everything and all. But they'll also try to paint this little picture that all these autonomous groups don't have centralized authorities, so therefore there's no possible way that they could ever fall under the umbrella of a cult religion. They use these little traditions as an excuse to get out of all the horrible things that go on. Because if you do bring it out into the limelight, like they did in the case of Carla Breda, everybody gets to play the Nuremberg game again. They all get to come out. I had no idea that happened. I've never even seen any abuse in AA meetings. Oh yeah, sure. You know, my first sponsor was a rapist, and he liked to prey on girls that were a little bit underage. But I mean, you know, we're alcoholic. We're all sick in here. It doesn't have nothing to do with AA. You can't blame AA for this. You know, it is really funny how they get really defensive about that. You notice they never come out and ever say anything other than the fact that they blame the victims for these problems. You know, let me ask you a question, hypothetically, who's watching this. If you joined an organization, and an organization, I told you, we have sexual abuse that goes on within this organization, but it's not our fault. We have members in this group that do all kinds of criminal things and unsavory activities, but it's not our fault. And if you asked the organization, well, look, you got all these sex predators running around. You got all these unsavory people running around. You got a lot of them in leadership positions in this organization. You got a lot of them that are using their status in this organization to get away with a lot of these unsavory acts. Don't you think you ought to do something about it? And the organization's response to you is, there's unsavory people everywhere. Why? You got sexual predators in the local library. Who the fuck are you to tell us that there's something wrong with our wonderful organization? We don't need reform. It's you who's the problem. Would you join the organization? Would you even consider becoming a part of such a shitty organization that it would give you an excuse like that? It's because AA has the appeal of the modern media, the talk show hosts, you know, that were all pushing it back in the 80s, and you people like Dr. fucking Phil and all of that other kind of thing, and that it's got a multi-billion-dollar a year treatment center industry behind it, and it's got people in positions of power in the government that support it, and it's got drug corps and all that other kind of stuff, that they're able to even pass themselves off as any kind of acceptable form of treatment in today's world. But it is funny how they use the autonomous bracket to sweep all their dirt under the rug. You know, it was funny in the days before the Catholic Church sex abuse scandal broke, the questioning the authority of the church, if you grew up in a Catholic household, was tantamount to heresy. We ought to burn him at the stake, maybe. Maybe before we burn him at the stake, we'll give him a time to go to confession and, confess and all that other good stuff. But when that story broke, it kind of weakened, I would say, from my own personal perspective, it kind of weakened the absolute stranglehold authority they had over a lot of people where, that I'm familiar with in my own background. Well, if your organization is going to protect child molesters and it's going to take child molesters, it's going to move them from one church to another church so they can molest more children by sweeping the problem under the rug, maybe they're not an organization I want to pay money to. Maybe they're not an organization I want to claim to be a part of. With AA, they hide behind the autonomy thing. Well, that was one AA group. It happened way out there, It doesn't happen in all the AA groups. And if it does happen, we're all sick alcoholics in here. It has nothing to do with us. We couldn't possibly be a religious cult. Don't look over here. Pay no attention to that man behind the fucking curtain kind of thing. But it was an interesting thing that I was looking at in terms of cult criteria. In a very well mind, they're taking it from the Cult Education Institute, which I didn't know there was something called the Cult Education Institute. But it lists these tenets as being a primary warning bell, an alarm for being in a cult religion. I'll read along a few of them, and you just chime in on the comments when I'm done here and tell me what you think. The very first one on the list is absolute authoritarianism without any accountability, which if you notice when you come to AA, you're more or less told at the very beginning with how it works, that rarely have they seen a person fail. You notice they use the sly, subtle manipulation tactic of saying, we. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. This is a we organization. Individuals don't account for shit in here. The ones who recover, they just can't do it because they don't want to do it. Or they were just born defective fucks that can't possibly fit into our mold, which is rigorous honesty. You notice nowhere in any AA meeting that I've ever been to or anything that any AA member I've ever talked to, ex-AA member, because AA members will lie in a heartbeat about the organization. Or in my meeting, we disagree with the big book all the time. Or in my meeting, I can say, fuck the big book, and nobody even bats an eye about it. Nobody even cares. They're so dishonest about it, which is proof right there. There's some cult authoritarianism going on with it because the cult can't possibly be wrong at any given cost. The absolute authoritarianism is established right off when you have to identify yourself when you're called on. You are a John Doe. You are an alcoholic. You are a part of a we program where rarely have we seen a person fail who follows our path. The big book is read at every single meeting and nobody ever questions it. If you don't believe me, go to an AA meeting and say, I'd like to chair a meeting tonight, but I don't agree with everything in the big. In fact, I don't agree with a lot of what's in the big book. I'd kind of like some feedback about this. What are you told if that happens? Do you have a sponsor? Do you have somebody that's taking you through the steps? Do you have a home group that you're accountable to? Do you need to talk to your sponsor. You need to talk to your sponsor. I mean, no, you can't do that. Try chairing a meeting and saying, this chapter in the big book, it don't apply to me. This whole we agnostics thing, don't speak to me at all. Matter of fact, I don't like it at all. And I don't think that I have to get sober and agree with this chapter. I just don't think it works. See how quickly you're shot down. See how quickly you're attacked. See how quickly you're demeaned or you're pushed out of the little inner circle that actually controls every group and every meeting. Every group and every meeting may be autonomous, but it's the same unsavory, shitty, old-timer people that are running it. They got a stranglehold over the thing. They get to decide who talks. They get to decide who's deemed worthy in their eyes. Take a look at your fourth and fifth step. You're not doing a search and fearless moral inventory of yourself. You're defining yourself as right or wrong as the cult says you're right and wrong. You notice the entire fourth step is all about fear and sex and anger. Well, and who says fear and sex and anger are bad? The cult religion does. I remember one guy that was trying to defend it, and he said, well, a little humility never hurt anybody, including atheists and agnostics. But humility is redefined in AA. It's another cult characteristic, by the way. Certain words don't mean what the fuck you think they mean. Humility in AA just means that you recognize that you're not shit, that you accomplish shit, that you do nothing, that AA gets all the credit for everything that happens to you if you quit drinking, of course. Now, if you pick up a drink again, it's all your fault. Another cult characteristic in very well mind, zero tolerance for criticism or questions. Well, I think I just kind of laid that one out with that one. Lack of meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget. Well, every home group does whatever it wants to do. And in certain cases with AA, I don't think anybody knows anything. They make you think the entire organization is flat fucking broke. That the only thing that's keeping it going is $1 in the basket at every meeting to pay for the shitty coffee and a few pamphlets. They don't tell you about the multi-million-dollar a year salaries the people at the very top draw. They don't tell you about the people that work on those state assembly things and all the money they make off of AA. They don't really want to tell you about all that. Kind of sounds like, they sort of made the list on that. And unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil conspiracies and persecutions. Well, you do have the whole entire thing about nobody can understand you like we can understand you. Normal people don't think like you. Normal people don't have drinking problems. Normal people don't get off work and want to have a brew at the end of the day and end up having a brew too many and get drunk. Normal people don't do that. They'll never understand you. They'll never accept you. They'll never tolerate you. But us, we'll tolerate you. After all, we heard your fifth step. We know what a piece of shit you really are. And because we've determined you're a piece of shit through your fifth step, because Bill W. in his book says that that's what you are, your identity becomes a little bit less in our eyes. You see, we're your people. We're your tribe. And if you care about your family more than you do us, just go pick up a drink. Because if you don't have us, and you don't have our cult religion, and you don't have the sponsors and the meetings and the gurus and the books and all that other kind of stuff, you're not going to be worth anything anyway. One of the most telling ones on the list right here, it says, a belief that former followers are always wrong for leaving, and there's never a legitimate reason for anyone else to leave. Let me ask you this. You ever heard anybody say in an AA meeting, Bill was coming here for a while. He was a bad fucking drunk when he came here, and, he got sober, and I hate it that he doesn't come around much anymore. The last time I talked to him, he said, I just don't get time to do meetings much anymore. You ever heard that said in an AA meeting? No, you'll never hear that in an AA meeting. What you'll hear in an AA meeting is, well, you see, Bill, he was a bigwig here, and he's not here anymore. See, he's out there. He's out there. Yeah, it's really fucking bad. He's out there. Or they'll say when someone goes away and they're not there anymore, they're either going to other meetings or they're out there. You're out there in the big scary world where the cult religion can no longer protect you, where it can't give you its anointed blessing of being able to sit in the rooms and be graced by the presence of all these old-timer assholes. You're out there, Abuse of members is on the list. Well, we know all about that. Records, books, articles, programs documenting abuses of the leader of a group. We got plenty of those. Check out the book AA Harbor Stories. I think they had like 3 volumes as a result of it. I believe that the leader is right at all times. The AA Big Book is never wrong. The AA program is never wrong. Nothing you ever do in AA is ever the fault of AA. It's all your fault if you ever fuck up. The Big Book is perfect. The steps were written divinely inspired by God. Every group may be autonomous and every group may be on its own, but it has only one loving authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. The group consciences of these little home groups that are run by these kind of bastards is anything but loving. It's a bunch of narcissistic assholes that like to feed their own egos off the miseries of others. The last one is a belief that the leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth and giving validation. Go to an AA meeting and say, I don't want to read the Big Book tonight when I'm chairing this meeting. You know what I want to read? I want to read this medical book I checked out from the library. This guy doesn't go to AA, but man, what he's talking about here with nutrients and chemical imbalances, it makes so much sense to me today. I'm going to read this tonight for the meeting topic, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to share our experiences with vitamins and nutrition tonight. You won't get that. Every AA meeting is conference-approved literature, which is Bill W.'s Big Book, or whether it's the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, which he wrote when he was bordering on a nervous breakdown. They said he would actually hold the typewriter and cry when he was writing it. But it's an absolute authority on how you must live your life. Cults are dangerous, they say, because they rely on deceptive authoritarian practices and deceptive recruiting methods. Well, we know all about that with AA. You can believe anything you want here. You can believe in anything. Your higher power can be a fucking rock. Your higher power can be a fucking doorknob. We're not making you join our religion. Just kind of ignore the part where you have to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understood him, because as you understand him is a rock. Even though it's him, even though by the time you get all the way down to 12, it's God, 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 God. God is defined by the AA program, which has a really funny religious belief. It doesn't concern itself with ethics. It doesn't really concern itself with certain holy days or fasting or any of that kind of thing that a lot of mainstream religions do. No, it's all about, I didn't drink, I went to meetings, I did a 4-step, I say all the right things. I can get away with rape, I can get away with theft, I can get away with lying, I can get away with manipulation, I can get away with abuse. But I haven't had a drink today, so according to AA God and AA religion, I'm 100% in the clear. And there's nothing you can do about it because all the groups are autonomous. Nobody answers to nobody. Why, some of my groups that I go to, we don't even use the word God. We open up with the prayer to the rock. We don't even say the Lord's Prayer at the end of the meeting. We say our rock in heaven, All manipulative lies and bullshit tactics. I saw something, and then I've talked 20 minutes. I talked a little bit longer than I thought I was going to this go around, but I saw somebody do this one thing that it's always reprehensible to me when they do this, but this cult member was commenting on a YouTube video, and he said, why do people have such a problem with millions of people getting well and stopping drinking? Oh, poor persecuted you, the fact that mean-spirited assholes like myself would have a problem with all these millions of humble, well-meaning people that just want to get better. I just can't imagine how you're so evil and everything like that. This is probably coming from one of the same asshole old-timers that sits in meetings saying some have to die so that others can live, saying that you can bend your knees before God every morning, or you'll bend your arm with a can of beer by evening, and all that other kind of shit. But we're just humble, nice, kind, friendly neighborhood people that just want to do our own thing, and you're just so mean for calling us out on all our lies and all our deceptive recruiting tactics and all of our bullshit. It's a funny little convenient persecutor complex, and it just pisses me off to no end whenever I see that. I could keep talking about that and giving examples, but that would be another video in of itself. So at 21 minutes and 45 seconds, I think I've said about all I can say on the topic for this week. Chime in on the comments. Let me know what you think. Or if you knew about the Carla Breda case, you were bound to have seen all those AA people blaming her for being murdered by an abusive asshole that they knew was an abusive asshole and they did nothing about it. Anyway, until next time.